Good morning. As you can see, it is Friday the 13th. Ooh. Everybody that's superstitious, be careful. Don't go under an umbrella and don't walk in front of a black cat. So maybe be extra cautious today, wherever you are. Because we just don't know, do we? And everything is predictive and predictive programming. Look at this. This is from some Australian place called traveller.com.au. So this is marketed or aimed, directed, whatever you want to call it, put towards the Australian people. And the gentleman's name, Ben Groundwater. Now, if that is a real name, then I really am Dorothy, and my cat is called Toto, but he's not really a cat. He's a dog that identifies as a cat, and he may be male and he may be female. That's up to you to determine, because it's not up to me to say what he is. I'm sorry, but I'm having a rant. But anyway, I couldn't believe this. So it's basically 10 things travellers should not be doing in 2023. So if you are an Australian and you're going to be travelling somewhere, don't do this, okay? Now we're going to tell you what you can't do. And it shows a photo there of somebody on a plane, quite a small plane actually, and they look a bit cramped in, don't they? She's not a big lady, and look how close that person is. So this is, a standard, maybe it's a Virgin flight or something, and she's got her mask on. Yes, she's got the mandatory face nappy on. But anyway, so let's get into this. So New Year's resolutions generally are about what you want to do. You want to lose weight, you want to start exercising, blah, 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 blah. You can read all of this yourself. You don't need me to. It says, but there are noble goals that I would encourage. However, when it comes to travel in 23, it's not as much, go away. It's not as much about what you want to do, but what you want to avoid. See? So they're telling you, you might want to go on holiday, but don't plan your holiday on what you want to do and where you want to go, but you want to plan your holiday on things that you don't want to do and things that where you don't want to go. What type of holiday is that? That's pretty warped mentality. Your holiday's shit from the start when somebody's trying to tell you what you can and can't do. Why bother go on holiday? But anyway, excuse me. To get the most out of the world of travel and to give the most back this is not what to do over the coming 12 months. So they're basically, this is double speak. To get the most out of the world of travel, yeah, that's one statement, that's fine. And to get the most back. This is what not to do over the coming 12 months. So if you want to get the best holiday and if you want to give the most back, well, what are you going to be giving back? You're spending your money, you're spending your time, you're giving people business, you're providing security financially to people, you're promoting a certain place or people or businesses. So you're giving a lot in. And what are they giving back to you? Hopefully they're giving you a good holiday and a nice experience and a good time and value for money. Okay, fly. And then so talking about flying. Okay. Most of us will fly in a commercial aircraft in 23. Living in Australia, it's hard to avoid because, it's a big country. What you don't want to do this year, however, is fly when there's another option. Can you see that? What you don't want to do is fly if there is another option. Now, Australia is big. To get in your car and drive from, say, Melbourne to Sydney, that's 12 hours in your car. And from Sydney to Brisbane, which is the next step up if you go in a ladder step, and Melbourne being down the bottom, ground level, that's about 12 to 14 hours. So from Melbourne to Brisbane, you're looking at 24 hours. You're looking at 24 hours on your car, and you'd have to split it. It's a bloody long way. So they're saying, maybe you should take a train or take a bus. But what I thought was the crappiest thing that they said, because once again, this is all marketed towards be a good citizen, be a good subject to the world, be green, be favourable, be nice to the environment. Look at this. when you drive yourself, flying is appalling. Sorry, they should have chosen a better word, because you look at it and you immediately think appealing, but it's not. Flying is appalling for the environment, and you need to cut down. Wow. So they're trying to guilt trip you that flying is so bad for the environment, but it's okay if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, or if you're a politician. Your private jet doesn't spew out those emissions like your horrible standard, domestic slave trade vehicles do. They get this pass, and we get nothing but degradation, shame, and demoralisation. Okay, so anyway, so they're saying don't fly. If you want to go somewhere, don't fly, please. Maybe get on your electric bike and go there and hope that you get there safely. By the time you get there, your holiday's over and you've got to turn around and go back home. Wow, what a holiday you had. Yes, you really enjoyed yourself. Okay, now they're saying the pandemic isn't over, so don't ignore COVID. The pandemic isn't over. We're entering a phase where we think the risks are normal. My advice is, when it comes to it, not to let it scare you off your travel plans. So they don't want COVID to scare you off your travel plans, but they don't want that. But everything that they're telling you not to do, and where you don't places you don't want to go to, and things that you don't want to have to do when you go there. So maybe rethink where you're going. In this second paragraph or second linkage, they're saying don't let it scare you off your travel plans. See what I mean? It's double speak. What they say is not what they mean. You need to look at the language that they're using. And at the same time, to ignore the risks and plan for them. Once again, propaganda to Australia, because the numbers here are so low, especially in Western Australia. It's Northern Territory in Western Australia have the lowest of the 4th GB jab. So they're smart people. They've realised, I haven't had any and I'm not going to. But anyway, so you've got to get a booster if you can. Have an infection plan in case you get sick while you're away. Look at that. And make sure that you have insurance that will cover all necessary changes in your medical care. Well, once again, they're trying to decentivise the thrill and the prospect of travelling anywhere. And this is within Australia, obviously. And then they're saying, ignore Australia. It's exciting that we can see the world again. Even China is opening up. Wow. You can go anywhere now. Still, that doesn't mean you should forget about Australia. In the rush to go overseas again, there's a chance you will forget the attractions so recently discovered in our own backyard. The culture, the landscapes, the easygoing experience. What's easygoing? They're telling you, already at the start. If you can, don't fly. Who wants to spend 12 hours sitting in a cramped bus, next to somebody that might be quite large in body size, which has happened to my sister. Where they're flowing over their seat into yours. And that happens on planes as well, of course. And, I had an experience many years ago where I got the second last seat on the train from Sydney to Melbourne, or Melbourne to Sydney. And I was sitting there, I was like, oh, thank God, I've got nobody next to me. And the last second they're about to toot out the train, this guy jumps in, he's pissed as, he's drunk. He gets and flops himself into the seat next to me, stinks of alcohol, stinks of cigarette. I swear he had little bits of vomit all over his face and over his shirt. And so the train takes off, and I'm like, oh my God, I've got 12 hours next to that. Holy shit. And he proceeded to go fast asleep, snore like a donkey, and dribble, and he ended up leaning up against me as I was his armrest and his pillow. And I kept pushing him off. Yeah, it was horrible, Charlie. You weren't there, but it was horrible. And I kept having to push this guy off. And and I was like, wow. So his alcohol breath in my face and him leaning all over me while he smelt of vomit. But anyway, really incentivising things, going on trips in Australia. So it's easygoing experience. Well, mine wasn't an easygoing experience. It was quite a traumatic experience. I'm lucky, that I didn't sleep at all because I was a bit worried about him, maybe waking up and forgetting where he was and where we were, and, hands wandering and stuff, because, when you're drunk, shit does happen. And I actually read the whole omnibus of Oliver Reed not Oliver Reed, Oliver Twist. I say Oliver Reed because he played, the main guy, not Fagin. I can't remember his name, but he played, the bad guy, the robber, in Oliver Twist. Yeah, and I read the whole thing. It's like 600 pages, whatever it was, the whole 12 hours. I read the whole bloody thing because I had to be awake and alert while I have this impending disaster happening next to me. So support local businesses. We mentioned that earlier about supporting local businesses. Let's go on. Check luggage. So now they're saying, that there are golden rules for travelling in 23. Even check baggage on flights. Don't check baggage on your flights. What? That is if you can avoid it. If it's at all possible to travel with carry-on only. So why don't they want you to have checked baggage on planes? At the end of the day, you pay for a seat on the plane. You pay for a certain amount of weight. I know that some airlines, you've got to pay an extra for your checked-in luggage. But with Qantas, that's part of your Qantas. That's why I fly with Qantas. They give you a mandatory 20, and I don't like that word mandatory, but it is mandatory. You get 20 kilos checked-in luggage, and you get a meal or a appetizer. So you might get, a snack for, say, morning tea, depending on your flight, but you do get a meal. And, if you're flying in the evening, I know that they did have it, if you're travelling in between the international airports, which were the cities, not the regional, on a Friday or a Saturday afternoon or evening, you'll get free alcohol because obviously it was aimed at the business people and the politicians because they all fly with Qantas. But anyway, so now they're saying, so avoid checking in your luggage and only take, your carry-on. Now, what is the purpose of that? What are they putting in there? Because you're paying for that. They when they book a flight, they know exactly, they estimate the weight of the person. They estimate how much weight their luggage will be or what their allowance will be. And they know how much fuel to put in the plane. So, you can't tell me that they don't have adequate fuel in case somebody rocks up at the last minute and goes, oh shit, I'm sorry, I forgot to book my carry-on luggage or my checked-in luggage, but I've got this big suitcase, it's got 25 kilos in it. And they go, oh, sorry, sir, you didn't book it in. We don't have enough fuel. You're going to have to leave it behind. I don't think so. They'll just say, okay, sir, I'm sorry you missed the timeline. We can do that quickly and get that on the plane, but it'll cost you $400. And you then make the decision whether or not you need that 25 kilos that you forgot about. So I can understand that, but then underneath that, the bags are being misplaced. Have you only heard about the bags being misplaced around the world recently? Yeah, that's because they don't have enough staff, because they mandated all of the staff at the airports for a certain medical procedure that people didn't want because it's now killing people. It's making people really sick. But anyway, this isn't about that. This is about these 10 things that you shouldn't do when you're travelling. We avoid you to keep your luggage with you at all times. Carry on is the future. Yeah, right. Don't know what type of future you have, but it's not my future. You can stick that up where the sun doesn't shine. Don't expect to use frequent flyer points. They are great. Don't unless you attempt to use them. As airlines around the world continue to use pass to pandemic recovery, as flights remain full with fewer aircraft in the sky, maybe that's because a lot of the pilots aren't flying anymore because they've got heart problems. They might have myocarditis or pericarditis, and they're not allowed to fly because they're a health risk up in the air. Yeah, it's a long way when somebody has a up in the sky and you're up there and there's nobody that knows what to do. And plus, not just that, you've got to think back in the old days when I used to fly when I was younger, all those years ago, you could actually see the pilot, and they would ask you, if you were a child, and they'd hand out their little, your little package, with your little pencils and your little colouring book and maybe a little gift. And they'd say, oh, would you like to come up and see the pilot at the front? And you'd say, yeah. And they'd take all the children up and you'd have a look. And the pilot would give you a nod and he'd show you, and obviously you wouldn't touch any of the devices, but you'd see him sitting there and the co-pilot next to him. And of course now they are locked. As soon as the pilot's in there, that door is shut and locked because of what happened 9/11. So that is no longer possible. So in the event, even if you do have a pilot that's having some medical emergency, as they call them these days, or SADS, sudden adult death syndrome, up in the air, he's locked in with a co-pilot and nobody else can get in. So you're fucked. So that's when you can kiss your ass goodbye. And by then, it doesn't matter if you've got checked-in luggage or hand luggage only, because your holiday is ruined. But anyway, so they're saying with the frequent flyer points, don't expect to be able to use any of them because, you should not expect, here it is, you should not expect to be able to use these points for a free flight whenever you desire. I should add that at the bottom. I use my frequent flyer points all the time. You just need to organise and plan. It might mean that instead of, I'm lucky here on the Gold Coast, there's 2 airports I can use. I can use the Gold Coast Airport or Brisbane, which is only an hour's drive away. So I can use either airport. Obviously Brisbane being a major city, it has about 10 Qantas flights a day, whereas the Gold Coast only has 2. So, if I'm trying to go out of the Gold Coast and I'm trying to use frequent flyer points, there are less availability. But if I take that 1 hour or the light rail to the train station and get the train up to Brisbane, which goes straight to the airport, there's many flights that I can have. So, don't assume you can afford it. Another warning for 23, it's going to be more expensive than you're used to. The days of ultra budget travel are no longer. It is expensive to fly. Look at this. Once again, they are so against flying. It is expensive to fly anywhere right now, and it's likely to stay that way for much of 23. Book well in advance if you can, with plenty of research into the cheapest ways to get to your destination. If your destination is over the water, you're pretty screwed. You can't get in your frigging car, can you? Oh, sorry. I'll just get a paddle boat. Yeah, this is really aimed. This is where it pisses me off. They are assuming that Australian people are stupid, and I hate it when people do that. You assume I'm stupid, and straight away, you've got my. I don't mean to be rude, but you've got my fist up your ass, and I'm gonna be agitated at you. Sit on an animal. Well, this one here, I couldn't understand this, but they're saying that when you go to places. It's 23. The word is out now about animal welfare. See, once again, your holiday, it's not about your desire to do something. If what you're doing is going to destroy the environment, and if it's going to harm an animal, which is fair enough, I agree with that. I love animals. I love my birdies, and I feed my birdies better than I feed my own children, because my children can get their own food, but the birds can't. So they're saying, if you're travelling this year, be wary of participating in things like, riding on an elephant, a camel or a donkey or even a horse, which are often treated badly by the handlers. You don't want to be part of making it an industry. And I agree with that, but sometimes, having an animal that's being put to a purpose, which is to, for a photo, maybe with a donkey or with a llama or something like that, they may be in some ways mistreated, but they're also saved from being slaughtered. Do you not understand that? Because sometimes their fur and their hide is worth more, and people eat the animals. Have you not looked at all the horrible things that they do in the markets? You think back to the whole CV situation with the wet markets. They're nothing. The slaughterhouses in Asia are terrible. People will steal your cat. They will steal your dog. And they will boil them alive and eat them and sell their food at the market based on weight. Yeah, I'm sorry. So, to go for a ride on an animal, you're actually quite often saving their life because they're getting money from the animal. It's like what they say about, the whole children abuse thing, the slave trade. With drugs, you can sell it, it gets used and it's gone. Nobody can reuse that drug twice. But with a person or a child, a slave, you can reuse that slave. And it's the same with the animals. So sometimes by buying or engaging in that industry, you are saving the animal, not harming the animal. But anyway, and this one here got me, only rent apartments. Whoa. Spread the love in 23. You might also enjoy the Airbnb, blah, 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 blah. Staying in apartments is an interesting neighbourhood, feeling like a unique location, but we can't always travel like this all the time. So they're saying Airbnbs are great, but we can't all do that, because what you're doing by using Airbnbs instead of hotels, you're actually taking somebody's home away from them. Because the people will make so much money renting it out as Airbnb that you're taking a home, a potential residence from somebody. So it says, it's not good for the local communities for basic social structure and livability. This year aim for a reasonable split between hotels and apartments. In cities where housing affordability and overcrowding are an issue, go for hotels. See that? Sorry. In cities where housing affordability, why is this not working? It doesn't want to. It doesn't want to highlight it. There you go. They don't even want me to highlight it. And overcrowding are issues for the go for the hotels. In places where there's less of a problem, live the local dream. So basically they're saying, if you're going to steal someone's potential home, how selfish are you? Don't. This one, again, I couldn't understand this one. Stay on the beaten track. That to me was like that legislation that's coming in Melbourne, where you're not allowed to, go off the path when you go to a public or a state area. Don't go off wandering into the bush. Don't go wandering into, to go to a little forest somewhere. No, you stay on the path that's designated. You don't want to, harm the animals and ruin their domain. But this here is about familiarity. Australians have a tendency. Oh, we've got look at that. It's now doing it up there. Australians have a tendency to stick to familiar. It's doing it again. It just doesn't want to play today. It's doing it again. To stick to familiar destinations as they're perceived as safe. Well, I don't agree with any of that. Once again, I think they're just trying to encourage people to stay within Australia because they can push the tram, the train, the cars, the buses, all that type of stuff. So yes, and we continue on. Are we up to number 10 yet? I have no idea. But anyway, next one is avoid travel. Avoid travel. Oh, God. Avoid travel. Travel hasn't changed since the pandemic, not in any real basic way. If you're yet to head off since borders reopened, rest assured that the experience is still the same. It's still as exciting and as moving and brilliant as it used to be. Unless you probably notice a few superficial changes, a few extra precautions to take here and there. By and large, however, travel remains one of life's most enjoyable pursuits. Don't miss it. So what does this tell you? Up here, they're saying avoid travel, and down here, they're saying don't miss it. Once again, double speak. I don't understand. And Mr. Ben Groundwater, 10 things. We didn't do 10, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, it was 10. Wow. 10 loads of garbage. But anyway, that's the propaganda they're pushing towards the Australian population. Yeah, yoo-hoo. We are the land of the future. But anyway, go on holiday if you want to. Go where you want to. Take advantage of it, because honestly, 23 might be the last chance that you get to go somewhere that you enjoy. Don't forget, we'll be in those 15-minute cities. Yep, before you know it, we'll be locked into a cage. Take care. Look after yourself. Bye.